Hi everyone, this is Neil. So I wanted to give you some general feedback about your assignments. Everyone's going to get your individual feedback, but I wanted to give some general feedback as well, um, to just expand on some of the things that I found myself saying quite frequently when I was giving feedback on the assignments. Now, the first thing to say is I've really enjoyed reading these. I've marked all of your assignments now, which has been an absolute joy. Um, it really has been a joy, actually. I've I've laughed with you, not at you. I've laughed. I have been moved to tears. I got very wobbly in one person's feedback and found it very difficult not to start sobbing. So I've been very moved. I've been delighted actually by the ways in which you're clearly in all sorts of different ways taking the experience of the PG cert and using it to, really improve and in some cases absolutely transform and rethink your teaching. And it's lovely to see the sort of delight that that's bringing you and your own sense of success in doing that, and the ways in which you're clearly going to be ever more successful at being able to serve the needs of your students. So that is absolutely wonderful. I'm thrilled about that. There's a little issue at watch this space because I think I know what will happen and I'll be very amused about getting your feedback to you. So I've done audio feedback for everybody. You get sort of 6 or 7 minutes generally. And what you'll get is I'll say whether I think your piece was a pass, merit, or distinction. I will relate that to the specific part of the Sussex grading criteria. I give you feedback explicitly on each of the 4 learning outcomes that you had to meet, and then I talk a little bit about where I think you can go next. Now, in the past, what I've done is I've just set up shared Dropboxes, and people have picked up their feedback from Dropboxes. The files are too big to email. My system won't let me email them. Anyway, I've been told very firmly by BIM that I can't email them anyway, but that I'm not allowed to email them and I'm not allowed to use shared Dropbox because apparently this is in contravention. I didn't realise this. This is apparently in contravention of data protection policies of BIM, so I'm not allowed to do that. I'm in Thailand right now. I'm flying back on Friday morning. We actually have the PG Cert Board of Studies on Friday morning. And we're going to have to think I'll talk to Annalise about how we are going to get you your feedback back if I'm not allowed to use Dropbox or email. I suspect there'll then be a bit of a kerfuddle, and what they'll probably try and do is send it you via Moodle, your Moodle account, and then what I suspect, or your BIM Study Direct, or whatever they call it, account, the VLE. And then what I suspect will happen, don't quote me on this, although I am now making this as a public record, so I suppose you can, is that I suspect that there'll be all sorts of problems, technical problems, and they'll realise that doesn't work, and then you'll end up getting it via Dropbox anyway. But we will see how this unfolds over the next few days. So just to let you know that's where that's all at. So I have a couple of bits of general feedback I wanted to share. The first thing I want to say, and this is really important, right, is that in terms of the grade for your assignment, the grade is based on the quality of the essay. It is not based on the quality of your teaching, right? Those are 2 absolutely separate things. In some people's cases, they link and correlate, but in many other people's cases, they don't link and correlate because for most of you, your teaching is better than your writing, and you know this already. I'm not telling you anything that's going to be unexpected here. So the fact that one person might get 5% more than another person for their assignment absolutely does not mean that they are 5% a better teacher, okay? Some of you are going to need to help you work on improving your writing, and that's fine because that's absolutely what we expect at this stage of the PG cert. That's nothing to worry about, because it would be really nice to bring the standard of your writing closer to the standard of your teaching. You are great teachers. You haven't all written great essays as essays, but to be absolutely honest with you, I'm not as worried about that. I don't know whether my feelings and your feelings might not be the same around this. I'm not as worried about that because to me, the point of the PG cert, the really important thing about the PG cert is helping you become really great classroom practitioners, and you are all doing really well on that journey. Okay, the fact that some of you have got more academic experience than others, or more experience of writing than others, and therefore find it easier to write an assignment that fulfills the kinds of things that Sussex need the assignments to fulfil, is a completely separate issue. So please do not mistake the grade you've got for your essay with any judgment about the quality of your teaching, because they are separate things. Your essay is your ability to write about your teaching. It's not your ability to stand up in the classroom and teach. And I think that's really important. There isn't a single person in the PG Cert who I don't think is really good and has the potential to be an absolutely great teacher. And I think it's really, really important that we focus on that. So yes, in terms of feedback about where next, then we will need to be doing some work together around helping you improve the quality of your writing. And it's really about the clarity of your writing and the ability to put together an argument. And for fear of sounding like a broken record, I really think the place to practice that is on the blog and doing the blogging regularly, because the thing that gives you is practice in just getting your ideas down clearly. And it's not about being fancy, and it's not about being academic, it's not about using long words. It's just about getting the ideas down clearly and being able to evidence them. I'm going to talk to a couple of people I know who are really expert at giving writing tutorials, and see whether, I'm thinking particularly about Professor Eastcott, because she's been the external examiner on the Middlesex version of the course, but that's now ended. So I'm going to see whether Diana might be available to give some writing support and tutorials to you, so that you actually can have specific one-to-one support around your writing, as well as the tutorials around everything else. So that's good. And there's just a couple of kind of technical things around your writing that I'm going to encourage people to work on as well, which some of you would have had feedback on, which is about making sure that you've really linked in the things that you've been reading. And again, that's not about reading lots of stuff for the sake of being academic, or for the sake of being clever, or for the sake of being fancy. It's about showing how the things that you've been reading are directly linked to what you've been doing in class. It's about finding the perfect quote from your reading to relate to the thing that you were trying to do in class. And I think that's really important. Okay, good. Then in terms of the ways in which you're presenting a written argument, there's a kind of a way in which because what we're trying to do is we're trying to link theory and practice throughout this assignment. And we talked about this before the assignments came in. This is going to be particularly important, of course, for Module 2, because Module 2 is called Linking Theory and Practice. So it's about showing the ways in which the ideas you've taken from the course, that's what we mean by theory, the things we talk about in the course, and what you do in class are linked, and how you've used what you've learnt from the course to improve and inform what you do in your own classrooms. And there are two particular areas where I'm going to suggest you can now raise your games towards your final two assignments, your Linking Theory and Practice assignment and your Action Research Project assignment. And this is going to be really useful in both of those assignments. And should help, I think, all of you probably, aim to be adding 5-10% to your current grade, I hope. Which is, first of all, getting clearer about the why as well as the what. So when you're writing about what you did, many of you have used a really good structure, which is to say, well, I identified a certain problem. There was something that I wasn't happy with in my teaching. And then I identified a potential solution. Some of you have talked about that quite generally. We talked about this in the PG Cert. For this first assignment, that's fine. But some of you actually said, I identified a potential solution, and it comes from here, and you were able to say more precisely where the thing came from. So not just we talked about it, but, well, yeah, we did talk about it, but it comes from Biggs and Tang, or it comes from Hattie, and here's the quote. I'm going to encourage you all to move towards that way of doing things. Because that just makes the assignment look a bit more concrete and a bit more secure. Okay, then you write about how you tried to take that solution and implement it in your classroom, and then at that point, you were all pretty good about then saying what happened. So what worked well and what didn't work well. Okay, that's great. Some of you then added the next stage and some of you didn't. The next stage is then the, well, why then? So you've done the what happened, this was good, this wasn't good, but why do I think that happens? Now, we don't always know 100%, but we can come up with our best hypothesis, or we can come up with our top two hypotheses, right? So it's really important to remember, as well as saying what happened, to then put in your thinking about, well, why do I think that happened? So that's the first area for ongoing development, is to really improve the why. And just slightly associated with that, of course, this is why we need, because what we're trying to see is we're trying to see how well you think as teachers, right? So what we need in your assignments, at least 2 or 3 examples, and this would be true for Linking Theory and Practice essay and for ARP, is a couple of absolutely concrete situations where you write about what you tried to do in class. And you need the concrete situations because that's the only way where you can really show your thinking. You don't want it to be too general. You don't want to be talking in general about, oh, well, I've been trying to improve feedback this year. That's great. I'm delighted you've been trying to improve feedback this year. But you need to show a specific example of where and how you did it, how it worked out, and why you think that happened. Okay, so you've got to get concrete and specific. And I remember when I saw drafts of the assignments way back when, one of the most common bits of feedback I was giving was you really need to put concrete examples in, and I can see that those have appeared in the redrafts, and they appeared in some people who didn't show me drafts, but they didn't appear in other people who didn't show me drafts. So this is a really important thing, putting in the absolute concrete thing. That's the thing to work on next. If you feel like you've sussed that, then the final layer I'm going to encourage you to add, but work on that one first. But then the final layer I'm going to encourage you to add is then actually thinking about the ways in which we are putting theory and practice into dialogue with each other. What you've done at this point, what you've done up to this point, and I think this is probably true for pretty much everybody, and this is great because this is what we want at this point. Okay, so this is not a criticism, but what you've done up to this point is you've allowed the theory to inform your practice. You've allowed the theory to speak to your practice. You've chosen a theory or an idea or a model, you've applied it, and then you've written about what happened. Now, in a way, what that does is that's giving theory a slightly privileged position over practice, and it's good because at the beginning of the course you're taking on board loads of new ideas, and you're being asked to show how you've used those ideas. That's fantastic. We need an extra level now when we're moving on to the linking theory and practice assignment and the action research project assignment. And what we need there is we need to see your practice speaking back to the theory. We need to see you saying, okay, this was the problem, this was the theory I picked, this is what I did, this is what worked well, this is what didn't work well, this is why. And then we need two forms of evaluation at that point. We need one form of evaluation which is about you, which says, okay, on reflection, how well do I think I used the idea? Right, so that's still the theory speaking to your practice. But then we need another bit of evaluation, which is, and this is the extra bit, which is, well, now that I've used the theory in practice, what's my opinion about the theory itself? So this is where you're bringing in the dialogue element, because this is where you're allowing your practice to speak back to the theory. So far you've had theory speaking to practice. Now we're trying to have practice speaking back to theory so that we make a kind of a loop. And I'm not saying at this point that you should be saying, oh yeah, I think the theory is great, or it's mediocre, or I think it's loads of old pants, I'm never going to do it again. That's too crass, that's too broad and vulgar. What I am saying is we need to, all of the theories that we look at the PG Cert are very broad and general. They're theories about education in general. You think about all the stuff on effect sizes, and all those effect sizes have been arrived at by taking loads of different studies and averaging them. But in those original studies, for some students, this technique worked really effectively, and for some students less effectively. And all we see in the effect sizes is what the average is, what the mean is. So what we need to now get you doing more on, and this links to the question of why do I think things worked, is speaking back to theory and saying, okay, so that's the theory in general, but now for my specific students in my specific context, these are the elements of the theory that I need to think about or adapt or tweak or prioritize. So in other words, how do I make this idea work optimally for my students? And that then is your practice speaking back to the theory, because what you're doing is you are refining or adapting or challenging the theory in the light of your own practice. And if you have a little look at the Sussex grading criteria in your handbooks, you'll see that to achieve the highest grades, to achieve the distinction grades, it is about what they talk about challenging the received ideas or challenging the received wisdom. Well, you're not going to challenge things in the course of a PG cert, but what you can do is talk about refining ideas or making them precise, or talking about how you need to adapt them for your own context. And in my mind, that is the equivalent of what you're doing of challenging, and therefore would take you to the very highest levels. So those are some areas to be thinking about right now. The other thing I would say to all of you is you have great CPD plans, okay? So now would be a really good time to go back, have a little look at them, think, am I on track? Am I not on track? How's it going? Because it's 3 months down the line, and it's easy to lose sight of these things. I have a little habit where when I'm working on a piece of development, I'm working on my own coach development at the moment. I have a regular thing in my electronic diary that pops up. For me right now, it's weekly, but if it was a CPD plan, I'd probably do it every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, which just reminds me to look back at what I'm doing and just check in with myself and just see how I'm doing. So have a revisit of that right now. The other thing for you to revisit right now is your value statements, because you wrote some fantastic value statements, absolutely brilliant. And remember, those are meant to link to your action research projects. And we've talked about this, and that's been in the action research video. So now would be a really good time to look back at your value statements and just go, oh yeah, have I really incorporated that into my action research? So I hope that's been kind of some useful general feedback to all of you. I mean, congratulations, you have done some fabulous pieces of work. I'm so proud of you all. And so thrilled at reading about all the things that have been going on in your classrooms. I mean, that's the really most important thing. Some of you will find that in my individual feedback to you, I've kind of said some of the same things here, because obviously this general feedback, I'm just trying to reflect the most common things that I've found that I've been saying in my feedback. But I thought it'd be helpful for everyone to hear the whole general piece as well. And I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Oh, and the final thing just to say is, based on your individual feedback and then linking that to what you're wanting to work on in your action research projects, I would suggest that for your next couple of observations, make requests of your observer about specific areas you would like feedback on. So specific areas related to your CPD plan, related to what you're doing in action research, or related to any things that came out in your feedback on your assignment, so that you're really using the PG cert optimally to help you, go on the developmental journey that you specifically need to go on. Right, much love to you all, and I would look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, bye.